we're going to have the talk about the principal crops. Okay, and there were many crops, so necessarily I had to choose the maybe, exercise some discretion there. We will talk about sugar cane from Spain, and then the principal American crops that went there. Sugar cane brought by the Spanish. A little bit about the mining and beginning of the hacienda system and the manpower requirements, the slaves. Okay. The crops. I've chosen cassava, sweet potato, dasheen, malanga, and then sugar cane. All right? This is part of the what came and what went. If you look at root and tuber crops, this came from the old world, the beets, the turnips, the radish, taro. I put it old world because it's in Polynesia, and I see that as part of the Asiatic region. Rutabaga, carrots, and yams. This, of course, you only eat in times of war, okay? The rest of the time you feed it to cattle. And from the New World, somebody, I figure I get a raise from somebody. Okay, potato and sweet potato, cassava, and arracacha, okay?
What is malanga or dasheen?
Just wait, okay? That's going to be part of it. Okay. So we begin with cassava. The Spanish come, okay? They land and they bring what? Wheat flour and making bread and so on. Well, that is fantastic, okay? Except that you're now in the tropics, and the wheat intake, and barley, forget it. Right? So what do they have? The bread that they and the flour they had brought with Spain, that ran out. And the bread too started getting moldy, so you couldn't. So what do? Well, you start looking, what are these people eating around here? Well, they found this thing growing, and they were making some kind of a bread type thing. Well, they looked down at it and they said, man, that's inedible. But time passes, and your stomach claims. And all of a sudden, they take a little bit of it. Hey, this stuff is not so bad. Also, it can be kept under tropical conditions for a long time. Oh, okay. But this came up from this plant, okay? It's from the milkweed family. The origin of it is from central western Brazil. And by the time the Spanish got here, this thing was all over the place. And you'll see why. Okay. As I mentioned here, had a high food potential, meaning you could produce a lot of it in a very short time. You could get fed with it. By the time the Spanish got here, it was, like I said, I repeat, all over the place. Okay. Had been in Brazil, but now it was in Mesoamerica, it was in the Caribbean, it was all over. So there was something about it. Cassava then, this is important, you'll see why, introduced to Africa by the Portuguese traders from Brazil. They had Angola and Mozambique, and they took it over there, and it did well. Okay. Then also, in the same period, 1500s, it was also taken to Asia by the Portuguese and the Spanish traders and planted in Goa, Malacca, eastern Indonesia, Timor, and the Philippines. Okay. What does it look like? Well, if you pull, and that's how you harvest it, you pull the thing out, dig it out, and then, of course, wash it up. You're going to wind up, this is the stem, and here are the tuberous the tubers of reserve food roots, okay? They're not tubers, they're roots, okay? It's important to understand that there are many kinds, and there are two. One is sweet cassava, which is edible. I mean, you can grow it, dig it up, boil it, and eat it, and you got no problem. However, there is this other one that if you do that, you will just die, okay? Okay. So surprise, surprise. You had to know what you were doing, okay? And they all look the same above ground, so careful, careful. Okay. So we got bitter and sweet, two classes. And you say, well, what is this bitterness? Guess what? Hydrocyanic acid, cyanide. Wow. You see, there is a glycoside. It's a compound that has part, let's call it sugar, part sugar, and the other part is hydrocyanide. It's a mechanism of defense by the plant. If a worm, some insect, or whatever scratches it or penetrates into that root, then the plant, this compound that holds the cyanide, linked, okay, breaks, and it releases prussic acid or hydrocyanic acid. So that's the way the plant defense. It has nothing to do with us, okay? It's just a defense mechanism of the plant. We are, as far as the cassava is concerned, we're an insect. So it's going to try to kill us, okay? All right. It's widely, and here's another important thing. It's all over the plant, all over the root, but not in the stems or the foliage. The foliage is edible. How convenient. Okay. There are many, believe me, many hundreds of varieties through the eons, through the centuries that we've grown this thing, many varieties. And like I said already, we know they are sweet and bitter. But also, there are some that have, for example, vitamin A, and they'll be yellow. Most of them are not so, but there are variations, okay. Some figures here. Raw cassava is 60% water, 38% carbohydrates, sugars, very little protein, and no fat, and not much else, okay? You have 25%, if you eat 100 grams, 25% of your daily requirement for vitamin C, but there's nothing else, really. What you have is a starch, and you have a little bit of vitamin C, and nothing else, okay? All right. Well, what did the natives, how did it come about? How did they manage to eliminate this cyanide? And so in many ways, you could cook it, you could dry it, you could go through a process of exposing to the air and then drying and then grinding in many ways, okay? And this is what these people, this is of course in South America, and you see the lady here and the kids, they're peeling it. The moment they peel it, that's important. The cyanide is released and is soluble in water. So that means that if they press it, they can get the cyanide out, okay? So it's important that you peel it, you let it rest for hours, and then you proceed to grind it and and get this juice out, the sap out, okay? Here's in Asia, and like I said, you will see, this thing is all over the world, and they're doing the same. And this is the traditional way of the indigenous populations in the Americas. The way they would do it, they would peel it, they would grind it, and then they would put it inside this sort of thing. And they would, very ingenious, they would press this, and you see the notches, that would tell you how much pressure you're putting. And then they're catching the juice, because that has some uses too. This is very important. Then they will come over here, take that over here, get it out, and you have this paste-like material. All right? Then you put it over a hot, flat surface, stone or whatever, and spread it out thin, and that is cassava. That is the bread that the Spanish ran across first. Okay. Here you see doing the same thing. This is in Africa, but the procedure is exactly the same. You peel it, you let it rest a while, then you grind it up and get the juice out, okay? How important it is. If you go through the tropics, here comes the Columbian exchange in real terms. Nigeria, 47 million metric tons a year, okay? And that's no joke. Thailand, 30. Indonesia, 23. Brazil, and so on. Here's a pie chart. You got Nigeria, Brazil, contrast. Brazil is the originating place, yet it doesn't control at all. It's not, it is important, but not as much as it is in Nigeria, okay? Thailand, okay? Excuse me, it's supposed to be Cambodia, no Cambodia, okay? All right. My point is that if you remove today, you remove cassava from the market, we would be in big, big trouble in the tropical area of the world. And was it a Columbian exchange? Absolutely, absolutely there was a Columbian exchange here. Because 50% of it is planted and consumed, produced in Africa, 30% in Asia, and only 20% in the Americas. You can have all of these products for ethanol production, for animal feed, flour, starch, glucose, and then as fresh food, you can do all kinds of things. You can feed ruminants, you know, poultry, aquaculture, baking. You can make tapioca, okay? That beautiful type of starch that is from cassava, okay? And industrial, okay. Oops. This thing is really advanced. You know, I show you people, you know, peeling and doing, that's for the birds. That's not done now. We go industrial, and they get the fresh, then you got all of this machinery. You do the cleaning, the peeling, the crushing, removing of the water, drying, and then you get tapioca. And that's a big market, and it pays well. Show you some more. Okay. Here they are. Okay. Now this guy is making cassava chips. So it's not only flours, but you can make chips with it. Sort of like you do potato chips and so on. And as you can see, it's industrialized. Here's your scraper, paddle type cleaner. Then you go from that to here, to here, to here. And the Chinese will be very delighted to sell you the whole thing so that you can set up your industrial production of chips, okay? If you're interested in it, want to know, there is a YouTube, and it says cassava, from planting to harvest. And that is, let's get into that. What you use is, talking about easy, you just take these stems, okay, and the very stems, that's what you use to propagate the crop. See this guy's doing it? You chop it up, little pieces like that. This one is already, then you stick it in the ground. I'm not kidding you. You just go and stick it in the ground, and that's all you have to do. You just get the ground soft, okay, and keep moving. And oops. And you see, over here, they're getting ready to propagate and plant. Here's a plantation early on. And it goes on like that, gets like that. At that time, it's about a year, 10 months to a year. It's ready, pull it up. But here's another beautiful thing. You got lazy. I don't want to do it. Okay, well, let it grow. It doesn't matter. It can go on growing, and the roots get bigger, and so on. I'll show you. So it's also very suitable. You don't have to plant it in plantations. You can go back and do like this lady's doing, and right next to her home. So you got it in a gardening type situation and produce what you need. And it's kind of nice because you may be cooking here. Oh, I need some more. So you rush out there and get a few more and peel it and throw them in the pot. It's just as simple as that, okay? When I'm talking about big, this was more than a year. And this is from one plant, okay? You think that's big? How about that? Okay. This guy got lazy and let it go. No matter, it can be used, okay? It can be used, okay? It really looks like it's training. It shouldn't be, I don't know. Okay. So people say, yeah, this is great. This is great. I mean, all you got to do is just stick these little pieces in the ground, and you get, irrigation or rainwater or whatever, and it keeps on growing, okay? So why don't we do that over and over and over? No, you can't. Mother Nature. You come in and start planting in the same place over and over. What happens? Something ugly. The African cassava mosaic virus. You have a plant that begins like this, then the next crop gets like this, and the next one like this. So the first like that, and pretty soon you're out of business, okay? So you do have to know something about rotation and a little bit kind of go back to what the natives were doing. They would do this for 3 years and then move to another place. You cannot just plant again and again and again. This is nothing new. This is true of any crop that you start mismanaging. Recipes, plenty of them. Believe me, the thing is delicious, and don't have time to go in detail. But here's cassava, and then eat Caribbean. All through the Caribbean, and, the tropical region, you will run into cassava, yuca, Y-U-C-A, yuca, okay? And then here's the Essential Nigerian Cookbook. So this out there, the literature is all in the web. All right. Now we're getting serious. We're going to get serious here. This is sweet potato, boniato, okay? All right. It originated here, in this area, okay? If you look over the world now, because we're talking about Columbian exchange here, heavy duty, you got all kinds of names. It goes from boniato. This is the original Taino Arawak name for sweet potato. It's called boniato. So that takes precedence, okay? My point is, then it becomes batata, camote, papa dulce, patata dulce, sweet potato jams, and ñame. Okay, these two are misnomers because they got nothing to do with sweet potato, but people call them jams. Okay, my point is, if you have that many names, okay, that means this thing is being around and is very adaptable. Okay, just from the number of names, that tells you this thing is good. But there is more. This is a drawing, and look, this is very different forms, and it is this reserve root that we harvest. But it can be that shape, this shape, this shape, this, that, okay? We know that sweet potatoes 5,000 years ago, that were we know that. Sweet potatoes were introduced to Fujian province, China in 1594 from the Philippines. You see, it was brought to the central point. This is kind of interesting. The Polynesians had sweet potatoes before the Europeans arrived, okay? So this is proof that there had been trading, active trading between the Polynesians and the coastal Peruvian indigenous populations. And in fact, the name that the Peruvians used and that of the Polynesian is the same, Camaro. It's the same name, okay? So sweet potato was already there. Going back to shapes and form, look, it can be that big and bigger. This is what we're used to. But look at all the flesh colors that you can have. The genetics are fantastic, very adaptable. And you can, if you're a good plant breeder, you can play with this and literally get whatever you want out of this crop, okay? The sweet potato I grew up with in Cuba is not really that sweet. It has some sweetness to it, but it's sort of like a potato with a little sweet. Columbus, one of the first things, he started eating a lot of things the moment he landed. And he wrote in his report that the Indians had given him this thing cooked from a root that tasted to him like boiled chestnuts. And I can attest to you that it is a very, very, very good description of the taste of the sweet potato that he tasted, okay? This is a very complicated crop too. Very complicated. You want to reproduce it, okay, well, you get the root, put it in some kind of substrate, keep the temperature in the substrate right, and you start putting the stems out, and after a while, you get the stems, you pull them out, they are now called slips. And you take your slips, put them out in the field, then this happens, and then you go and get your sweet potatoes, all right? What is beautiful about it? It has very few insects and very few diseases attack it. And again, you don't have to do anything, just leave it, grow over there, put it in good soil, some fertilizer, and then let it grow, come and harvest it. And of course, it is ornamental. I said that there are many, many varieties. So there are many, many kinds of flowers and foliage colors and so on, and it is used as ornamentals. Look at the figures now. China, 71, rounding off, 71 million tons a year, okay? What is China without sweet potatoes? Zero. a big problem, okay? So they hooked on sweet potatoes just as much as Nigeria was hooked on cassava. If this is not Columbian exchange, then I got to change my name, okay? But you see, it's very dominant. In actual fact, it is produced anywhere you got a temperate to tropical climate and moisture and so on, you can grow sweet potatoes. It's very forgiving of the type of soil. So you don't have to have a super fertile and super well made soil. You can practically plant it anywhere. I said cassava had some deficiencies, nutritional deficiencies. This is the opposite. This thing has protein and sugar, no fat, no cholesterol, okay? But look at this, vitamin A, the yellow color, for the yellow ones, okay? Here's a summary. Beta-carotene. This is interesting because coumarin makes it tasty, very tasty to us, okay? Water, carbohydrate, fiber, and protein now. And this is a summary. You get vitamin A and C. It's anti-inflammatory. B6, potassium, full of antioxidants. Good for blood sugar regulation, and they even claim that it may protect you against free radicals and so on. This thing is good. It really is good. Okay. Plenty of cookbooks. If you're a southerner, you should know about sweet potatoes and what to do with them. But if you need a little help, there's plenty of help, okay? Now we come. I'm sorry?
There were so many varieties. Are all the varieties equally?
Yeah, you know, you have to match the dishes with a variety, okay? So you have to, each one will have a, you know, and you can see how it can be very rich in the culinary properties. You ask about malanga, okay? There's your malanga. There it is. It is in the elephant ear family, okay? And it has the characteristic flower, and this is what the tuberous root looks like, okay? All right? But you say, well, that's just like sweet potato. Not quite, okay? Unusual for, you know, elephant ear. Usually they like shade and they want to be in the understory and so on. This thing can take full sun, and as you can see here, in fact, it likes it. And the same thing, you take these little corms, you know, at times of harvest, and that is what you use to propagate it. Is stick it in the ground and it grows. It's as simple as that. Look at all through the world, but particularly here in the Caribbean and the Mesoamerican, it's very, 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 very much liked. Okay. Like I said there, they can be cultivated areas with full exposure to the sun. How you cook it? You boil it, you peel it, and you boil it like you do a potato, okay? You eat it the same way. Once it's done, you put a little garlic and a little bit of olive oil, and you go. Okay. You got the calories, very little fat, carbohydrates. Now you have fiber, and you get a significant amount of protein. and it has vitamin C, riboflavin, and so on. So this thing is really very nutritious. The starch that it makes is very special, very fine, and it's used in thick as a thickener, soups and so forth. And yes, it's in the web, and you got lots of recipes on that. By the way, this is an interesting one because I remember when I came to Auburn, forget it. There wasn't anything like malanga around. Now you can get it. You can get it. And now they bring it in the local markets. So this is part of the Columbian exchange. It's been extending and extending, and there is no big city that you cannot get your malanga. So that here and in Europe, okay. So that, let's see. And then, but not least, now we're going to come from Europe to the Americas, okay? Sugar cane. Trouble, trouble, trouble. I don't know if you all know, but this thing came from New Guinea. You know the Papuans, people with a, they were incredibly good plant breeders. And they were playing around with this canes, and some were sweeter than others. And through the centuries, they selected one that was really super sweet, and that was sugar cane. It came from them. It was among the plants that Columbus brought in this second voyage. More about that in a little while. Okay. It's really the plant, as I mentioned, was taken to Southeast Asia, southern China, and then to India. The Arabs, the wonderful traders, they brought it all the way through the Muslim world, and it came into Spain, which was Muslim Spain. When they went, or were kicked out, whatever you want to say, the Spanish then brought them to, Portuguese to Madeira, and the Spanish to the Canary Islands. It was the first sugar that was produced in the Americas was in today's Dominican Republic, or Hispaniola. So, from here, New Guinea, over here, then to India. These are Muslim areas, okay? And these are the dates, and then by Europeans, and this is the Canary Islands, and that's the Madeira. This happened. Big, big, big. When you talk sugar cane, there are books written about this. They said sugar cane is larger scale, okay? It is not democratic. It's not a democratic crop. You need to have big spaces. You need to have huge amounts of capital and so on. Tobacco, for example, is the opposite. It's a small farm. So it is democratizing. Think about our history. And it's so difficult to propagate. Again, you get this stem, this is what this guy is doing. He's doing a little bits like that. And stem cuttings, you get a node, and then you put it in the soil, it germinates, you got roots, and then this is what you plant. The Brazilians managed to develop cultivars, varieties of sugarcane that fix nitrogen from the air. Okay? This was always the limiting factor, that to grow sugarcane you had to have nitrogen and fertilizer. The Brazilians have managed, they put a bug inside the roots of these varieties, and this bug fixes nitrogen for the plant. So wow, now you got a whole bunch of areas that were marginal, wasn't economic to plant. Now they became economically. So big explosion in the production of sugar and other things. I'm going to contradict what I said. I said that sugarcane is really big capital, big production fields and so on. Well, that's not always so. We have different types of sugar mill. The Trapiche, that's the oldest one. And then, of course, they had the Ingenio of Central. This is a big factory. Yeah. Okay. This is a Trapiche. This is somebody has, you know, a few acres, and they cut it, and they have, much like we still do with sugar sorghum, okay? Same thing. And they'll collect the juice and then proceed to boil it to get sugar. Or you can have this kind of thing, okay? I took this picture in northeastern Brazil in Maceió, and this was being fed by all of this area. So that is industrial production. Sugarcane processes produces cane sugar, bagasse, which is what you get after extracting the juice, and this can be used to power the boilers, make electricity, production of paper, mulch, all kinds of things. Important thing, sugarcane, you know, the sugar mill, do not need to have electricity or energy from the outside. It produces more energy than it uses. So it not only makes sugar, it can sell electricity. Okay? So that's beautiful. These are the products. I put this in big letters, alcohol. When this thing about fixing nitrogen happened, that opened the door, and the Brazilians went and make hog wild making alcohol. Their cars, trucks, and so on, this is not just 15%. It's 80 to 85% alcohol and a little bit of gas that they run. Okay. Molasses, sugar, these are all, okay. Brazil, India, thousands of metric tons, okay. So you got, all right. Here's Brazil, here's India, okay. Colombian exchange, now the other way. It goes the other way, okay. And that's just a map here. And you see all in the tropical areas where you get sugarcane production. I think we need to stop. Let's stop here about 5 minutes or so. Now watch me. I'm going to tell you a love story. I'm going to tell you a love story, okay? So watch me. You'll see. Okay. Recall that I said the sugarcane, the Arabs brought it to Muslim Spain, that's southern Spain, Malaga to be specific. And then Well, that didn't do it. They did well, but sugar was very, very expensive, okay? What do you mean by expensive? One sugar loaf, about 60 pounds. Guess how much you had to pay for it? $200 some. Yeah. So it was very, very expensive, and of course, very, very profitable. But they realized that right here is where they were growing it. They said, well, we can grow it here. Okay? And the Portuguese ditto. They said, we got Madeira. And those islands started producing sugar and became very, very rich. This is before Columbus came and messed up the whole thing, okay? All right. August 1493, Queen Isabel, and you will have to do what she said, okay? She was very tough. You say, go down, now go back, and take all manner of stuff to settle what you have discovered. In the process, he was ordered to come and stop in the Canary Islands to refit, pick up wine. Wine was important. You had to be drunk to get across the Atlantic, I think. And then he went to this particular island here, La Gomera. Why did he do that? And then he stayed there a whole month. Well, there was this person who was none other than the governess of the island, who had been exiled there by the queen because she had been making eyes to Fernando. And Isabel would not put up with that. So you go to La Gomera and forget it, okay? Well, guess what? This was, I got to show you, not bad looking, okay? So there was this and there was that. He was available, but there was nothing illicit here, except that he disobeyed orders, okay? But when he finally sailed, I guess there was something going on. She said, take these cuttings, okay? Okay, fine. Sweet lady. All right. And this got started, okay? We talk about haciendas, we talk about, I keep repeating, this is a slaving type production. You need slaves for this. And the slavery got started from that simple love parting thing, okay? Don't get outraged about the slaves, because everybody had slaves, everybody. What do you need in agriculture? You need a place, you need the sun, you need water, and you need energy. Energy comes from where? Slaves or tractors. There were no tractors, so you get slaves. And it was common, this is common for this area to go down here in Africa to buy slaves and bring them up. So this is a natural thing to do to them. Okay. And this fostered this kind of thing. Portugal, Angola, the slave coast, bring them over to Brazil, and go all these many ways to support all these plantation crops, tobacco and coffee, cotton, sugar, mining, rice, mining. So this sugarcane was very much a part of this. Excuse me. Between 1650 and 1860, between 10 and 15 million slaves were brought across the Atlantic. How they calculate those figures, I don't know, but that is what you read. I think it's an understatement. And you heard about this, the triangle, the Middle Passage, slaves go this way, they get over here, sugar, not cotton, it was sugar that was the money maker. Cotton didn't make as much. So everybody was growing sugar here. Then you get the molasses, rum, go across to Spain or to England and come on, not so much Spain, but Portugal, and then come on down with firearm cloth, go ahead and buy a slave for that, and this kept going. This kept going, okay? That's the modern system, okay? Oh, we got it good, okay? We got it good. You just plant your sugar cane, and it was easy to plant, I show you. And then you get this monster comes in, harvest it, take it to the mill, and you make sugar. Well, this was not so. This was the old system, okay? Which very, you can see, this is what was going on in the Caribbean and other places. If you were sophisticated, then you'd use a windmill, okay? But that's all the help you're gonna get. Windmill when there is wind, okay? And you chop it up like that. Okay. To summarize, okay, the principal American crops that we touched on is cassava, sweet potato, and malanga. That and sugarcane we just discussed, along with the beginnings of the hacienda system. And sugarcane and mining were the two that required slaves, okay? Need for slaves. Okay? Should have stopped here, but anyway. Now we're gonna shift. Remember I said livestock. What about livestock? Okay? I'm gonna go back a lot. I'm gonna really go back a lot, okay? When you go into cave paintings, let's call in France, Altamira in Spain, you find these little animals, okay? All right? They look like bulls, okay? Well, not quite. They were descendants of something we call aurochs, okay? What is an auroch? It's a gigantic animal, huge animal. I mean, like 3 times the size of a bull. And it was all over Europe, okay? In Braunschweig, they found one frozen, or I don't know. They reconstructed the animal with Germanic precision, because they will give you the angle of, right, this angle. So this is precise. It looked like that, big, okay? The female, you couldn't see the udder, okay? And here's the male. Right? It extended, are you hearing? Okay. It extended all through this area, and we're concerned particularly here. There was some North African species too, but this is the one we're talking about, because man, from this, selected what we know as the beef cattle, bulls, okay? And you see, we've been in love with this thing. We have been together, you know, for a long, long time. Here is a romantic idea of an auroch fighting the wolves, okay? And when I said that we have been in love with bulls, I offer this Crete in Knossos, okay? In the palace of Minos, okay? And you see this. You see dancers jumping over bulls, okay? See him here, see him here, okay? Oh, this is in the past. This happened years ago. Really? How about that? This is today. Today in Spain, they still do the same thing. So this love affair between man, and not only the Spanish, Portuguese do the same, the Southern French do the same, okay? This love affair is real. That is a brave bull. Brave bull. This is not your regular bull that you get. You don't want to lasso this guy. If you do so, you do it at your own risk, okay? They call it brave bull, toro bravo, okay? Now there you go. People think this is a sport. I'd say you're ignorant. You really don't understand. This goes back a long time. This is the elixir of culture to some, okay? Not only than Goya, the painter, dedicated a whole set of paintings to the tauromaquia. That is everything involved in bullfighting. And here it is, I don't know what you call it. This is not an hacienda. This is not a farm. This is an area, you see you got olive trees around, and these guys are let loose in there. Deliberately let loose in there. And every now and then they harvest. They come and get a few for the fights, okay? I don't know what the current price for one of them is, but they're very expensive, okay? If it were not, underline, if it were not for these cultural activities, okay, bullfighting included, this animal would not exist now. Because as a meat producer, it's a disaster, okay? So, and then of course you got the running of the bulls. The tourists like to do that. These are not all brave bulls. They're too expensive to put them in there. But there is, I keep saying, there is this connection between man and the bulls, okay? Yeah. And then we got this, okay? Now we're gonna get serious, okay? That was fun, this is serious. This is what Columbus brought in his second or third trip, the longhorn. Why? Why? Well, that's all there was, okay? The Texas longhorn, here. And they tell you the characteristics. Okay. Ancestral cattle, first brought by Cristobal Colon, 1493 to the Caribbean. Okay. Well, why? Because of this. Over the centuries, descendants of these cattle evolved high feed and drought stress tolerance, okay? You put it out in a semi-desert area and it will make it. It will prosper, okay? Ready-made for the new world environmental conditions, okay? That it was deliberate, no doubt. It was deliberate, they knew what they were doing. Go back, Hacienda, we're gonna get to Hacienda. You had to go to southern Spain, cattle area. Some of the people that came across, maybe not with Columbus, but later, they were from this area. They were cow people. And when they got over the Americas and saw these grasslands, I mean, they couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe it. Why? Because they came from an area like this, okay? It was expensive, grass was iffy, and the cattle that you could raise there, limited. And all of a sudden they come across and they see these grasslands. Wow, okay. And this is modern now. You notice there is no lasso here. They do not use lassos here. They use picas, pikes. Why? I told you about brave bulls. Do not try to lasso them. This is the only way that you can manage these animals. But to do so, you have to be an exquisite horseman. Okay? And you see what they do. That. Give you more. See, they go, and that's the way they manage them. They move them around and so forth. Here's some more pictures. Production, beef production. United States is number 1, Brazil number 2, the European Union. Really, there's a problem with producing beef cattle. It requires a lot of area. And environmentally, it's not a good deal. Having said all of this about bulls, now we are reaching the point where we cannot produce anymore. All the land that was available for beef cattle production is taken. Okay. This is beef production. And this is years. It's going down, flattening out or going down. But you see, this is also true of mutton, but that's another story. And what are we growing? Farming fish, poultry, pork. But as far as beef production, it's steady. It's not going to change, okay? The grasslands. We're in this grasslands, okay? All over the world, these are grasslands areas. Okay, let's define this. No jungle was taken, okay? Nobody cut forests or anything. These are naturally occurring grasslands. That's all that grows there, okay? People get outraged, oh, you got cattle. That means, oh, you're a monster, you cut the jungle down to raise. No, we're not talking about that, okay? This type of thing. They're open, and it can be hilly or even mountainous, this type, that type, that type, okay? Exist all over the world. In our country, they extend, well, it goes into Mexico too, but it goes all the way across. The type of grassland varies, as you would expect. You have geographical and environmental differences from the north to the south, okay? Okay. We got tall grass prairie, eastern Kansas. That's what it looks like. How about this for central New Mexico? Short grass prairie. Or you got a mixed situation like in North Dakota, okay? And you got this guy. He changes too. But you know, this is an idealized cowboy, okay? He's ready, he got that. He's looking to, and he does this. This is the way it was. There's no exaggeration here. You have to be tough to do this kind of thing. And that was the classical cowboy. That's what he had to do. And it created a personality. It created a way of thinking, but I'll say more about that, okay? Or the Mexican version, the charro. Both of them excellent horsemen, okay? You have to survive there. You know what this guy's done? This is prohibited. You cannot do this in the United States. It's a traditional, it goes back to southern Spain. It's turning the bull, through your horsemanship, you pick up the tail, and turn him, okay? And this guy is looking back, probably said, is it up or is it chasing me, okay? But anyway, that's Charro. Excellent horseman. And they, you know, one of the productions, you get tourism, you know, they come and watch you. I don't think they go in the field dressed like that, okay? All right. All right. Going south, just a little south, and you get the llanos. Llanos is the plains. And the people who live in the llanos are the llaneros, okay? But what are you talking about? Huh? It's the area comprising Colombia and Venezuela in the south. I repeat, there never was any jungle here. It was just these grasslands, okay? Many times, I think even today, this is theoretical. The frontier is theoretical. They go back and forth, okay? Doesn't matter. And don't mess with them. Don't mess with them. Just leave them alone, okay? So this is Los Llanos, the plains. And you have now, remember the North American situation? Now it's different. You got palm trees. Sometimes you got palm trees and water. Sometimes no palm trees, okay? And you get that. Joan gave you some example of the type of animal, but you got the capybara here. I put it here because this animal has been bred for, and it's very amenable for meat production, okay? But it is from this area. Here, it's very, very nice, very patient animal, okay? And you got this little baby, okay? I'm showing you what the llanero has to deal with, okay? Granted, he might lose a few to one of this, but it's not a serious loss when you're dealing with thousands of cattle heads, okay? But I thought this would give you an idea of how big they are, okay? And then you got this little animal, okay, the jaguar. This one is tackling now an alligator. Food is food, who cares, you know, that's it. They're loving. They pair for life, okay? Yeah. So they say, loving creatures. But then you also have this. This is part of the system. You got this little guy, you see him over here. They're doing a job on something, okay? Okay. Not so lovely, okay? That's piranhas, or caribs. They also call him caribs, okay? And this guy is there. He doesn't bother anybody, but no meat production from this guy. In Colombia, as I already showed you, there is this area, which is llanos. Okay. And this is the kind of situation they deal. It goes from there. You're in Colombia now, so you're beginning to have some mountains, okay, or area where you have flats, that. He's just being very precise. And this is the Colombian llanero. Notice the similarities, okay, with the American cowboy. Oh, excuse me. Whoa. You have your rope, okay? The gear on the horse is pretty much the same, okay? But this is different. They love music. They really do, you know. And it's beautiful music. They modified they love the harp, okay? But nobody is gonna take to the field that monstrosity that we use in classical music. So they reduced it to what they needed. And this is one of the forms, along with maracas and drums and a special guitar and so forth. I show you this. Here's some modifications. They actually have them in their houses and they carry them, you know, and they take them off the horse or whatever and play. Okay. It's beautiful music. So we call them llanera harps. Okay. And as in the U.S., here too, there is a culture that develops, okay? And it involves music, it involves good writing, it involves manners and ways of treating each other, which is typical of these cowboy types, okay? Here, they're teaching the kids. How do you teach the kids? You get them together, and this man is telling them, you do this, and they do this in high school and even before that. They're very interested in preserving their music. This is lots of compositions. So, keep going south. We'll keep going south. We're in South America now. We got the Pampas, forest, the Andes. Particularly, we're interested now in the grasslands, Patagonia, Mesetas, humid Pampas, and go all the way down, okay? Okay. You got the dry Pampa, humid Pampa. This is all grasslands, huge, huge. They change. The type of grass changes, okay? Here. See that? Got mountains here, open. And you recognize pampa grass. It's all over town, okay? Cortaderia seyoane. Tough, tough, tough grass. But it is from this area that it came. Now you see here in an area further north, and you got, like in Colombia, you got the palm trees. So it's very varied. Now here's this guy, you want a lasso? There you got it, okay? Joan already touched on this. There is a peculiar zoology. And you got the guanacos, which is in the camel family. You got deer, a special deer, fox, a rhea. So all of this is part of the scene. Okay. Yes, our friend is there too. Albeit modified, a jungle jaguar is very different from a pampa jaguar. The details, you have to adapt to puma. And this lovely little cat called Colo Colo, all right, and the Nyandu, okay. And this creature is what we have now, the Argentinian gaucho. This is the type of cowboy that fits the environment, okay. I had to be careful with the literature, because Argentina, Uruguay, and certainly also Brazil suffered, underlined suffered, huge immigrations from Europe. They came from Italy, they came from Germany, and this messed up the things, because these people really don't understand cattle, okay? So they started flooding, and I said, I got to get to a period before the migration, so I get a feel for who a gaucho is, okay? And I was fortunate that this guy, Moritz Rojendas, in the 1840s, made these paintings of gauchos, getting into lassoing wild horses, critical point that I forgot to tell you from the very beginning. When these Spaniards, these livestock people from southern Spain came across and they found these grasslands, they looked at it, oh, this is wonderful. What are we going to do? We just let the horses out and the cows too. But the cows reproduce a lot slower, but the horses, no problem. They kept eating and eating and moving and moving and moving. Then they got out of New Spain and they went into North America. Down here was the same. They were all over the place, and they became huge numbers of wild horses. And the livestock people, they were excellent horsemen. They said, well, anytime we need some horses, we just go out there and lasso them, bring them in, break them, and we don't have to worry about, if those go, we're going to get some more. And this is what these people are doing, getting in there. Peculiar. The Columbian Exchange now. They get together with the existing indigenous population who teach them about bolas. You throw them, and you throw them at the legs, they wrap, and they bring the cattle down, okay? And while I say that, great numbers, really great numbers of people from Spain actually move into these grasslands, were already occupied thinly, but were already occupied by Native Americans. They say Native American, I don't know, Indians. And guess what happened? They got together, okay? And they married. And the Spaniards showed him something, and the Indians showed him something, and you got the gaucho. So it is a peculiar individual.
Does gaucho have a special meaning?
I'm sorry?
Does gaucho have a special meaning?
Meeting?
Meaning, does the word...
No, it's cowboy. That's what he said. It's cowboy. In fact, it's an Indian word for cowboy. Of course, they brought the cattle and the horses. They're excellent horsemen. And you see them here, they do this. No lasso or nothing. They get together through horsemanship. They actually capture the animal and they leave them, that you have to be a pretty good horseman to do that. Okay. And you see here their mate, which is, if you don't know about it, it is a tea made from holly, not the English holly, a special holly, which is Ilex paraguayensis. We had the equivalent in the South, Cherokees and so on. They had what they call the black vomit. Well, it is a holly too, but that's another story. Okay. But I show you to the horse also evolved. Remember that a sleek-looking, nice-looking Andalusian horse, the best in Europe, it still is, okay? Well, you see it? Now it's a little shorter, So they have a special horse that developed. So in all, this is adapted to the pampas, is adapted to the places in the form that the gauchos wanted it, okay? So there was a lot of cattle breeding, horse breeding going on, okay? The feminists take note. There are female gauchos too, and they are good. They're really, really good, okay? There are two ways of domesticating a horse. One is the Spanish style, you break it, you ride against, and then finally the horse is made to concede, okay? And there is the Indian way, which I call taming, okay? All right? Doma India, Indian style, is doing this, okay? You get to know the horse, and you treat it right, and through the months, the animal becomes yours, and you become part of the animal. They're the best horses. Okay? Okay. As you move south in Argentina and you enter Patagonia, then the climate becomes cooler and cooler. So you change from beef, you change to sheep. But you see another type of now of individual. Here it is. Hats, appearance changes. Okay, but they still gauchos. And here you see them, huge numbers of sheep. This is a guanaco. It's they hang around. There's no special use for them. Every now and then they get a little wool out of them if you can catch them. All right. Good. All right. You notice the llaneros don't use pistols, and the gauchos don't use pistols. They consider it unmanly. Unmanly. It's a sissy thing. It's a residual of the Castilian pundonor, a point of honor. That has bedeviled, really bedeviled all the descendants of the Castilians. Is macho a macho, man to man, okay? Pistol, there is no contact. So they really truly believe that this is an unmanly way of fighting. However, if you should have to do that, they have this, okay? It's called a facon, you see. Very different, and it's become an art form. This is a fighting knife. So when you get angry or somebody gets angry with you, they come up to you and you do the fighting with that thing, okay? It's really beautiful. This whole thing that I've been saying about the gauchos created this music. No, it's not tango. It's not tango. It's called payadas. Payadas. And it's in itself, it's a literature and a music. This guy wrote, Martin Fierro, was a novel here published 1894, describing this whole cultural thing that was a gaucho, that has permeated the way of being of the people who live now in Argentina, Uruguay, in southern Brazil, and so forth. Not all of it is nice, so, but he tried to be as precise as it was, okay? Yes, there is a Brazilian gaucho, and you see there's a little different. They're in love with this longhorn, they love the longhorns, and then you go and blow that longhorn, and they also love this. Churrasco, okay? Here's a Brazilian gaucho, okay? Okay? If you go across the Andes, you find the Chilean version. It's called a huaso, okay? And I'm showing this because we have the American cowboy, the Andalusian jinete. There he goes. All of these are descendants of that. You got the Argentinian, Brazilian gauchos, Chilean huaso, Colombian, Venezuelan llaneros, and the Mexican charros, okay? And you got the both, okay? Okay, okay. He likes mate, okay. Beef cattle, horses, sheep formed extensive livestock enterprises, okay? Geographical, climatic, and environmental conditions determine the development of societies and customs, each grassland, okay? And as you saw, they can be pretty sharp in differences. However, these people represent successful human adaptation to these environments. Okay? They develop ways of life and culture with music, literature, arts, and technologies that define the regions where they live, determining to a large degree the nature and customs of whole nations. It's there, ways of thinking. Okay? You never know about this guy. That's it. He's having mate. Thank you.